Hey everyone, welcome back to Unbiased Magic Reviews. Today I have a requested magic review for you. We're taking a look at Billet Jazz by Jose Prager. So a number of you have emailed me asking me to review this book, which was put out by Mentalism last year for $35. Now you can get the ebook for $10. As the name suggests, it's a book of techniques and applications of mentalism with billets, basically is what it is, commonly known as billet work. As usual, I'm going to give you guys my initial impressions. Just try to answer those questions you probably have. I'm going to touch on some pieces in the book, stuff that I thought was either really good or really bad. So I would recommend that you stay away from this. I don't even think it's worth $10. I found that the book was very poorly written. There is a lot of items in the book that I would consider to be like throwaway items. And when I say that, they're items that I would imagine that you would just share with your friends or you would post on a forum, but not something you would charge people for. So I was really shocked to see that. There's a number of items here that have been borrowed from other people, things that have been published in the literature years ago, now being passed off as, I guess, new. There's also a number of items that Jose Prager has already put out over the years and he's putting back in here, but they're not new at all. So there's not a lot of new material here. In terms of the actual routining, it's very linear, basic routining. Probably the most complex thing you're going to find here is something that uses like the one ahead principle. And a lot of what you're going to read here is just common sense overall. So those are my initial impressions and why I think that you should just probably skip this. The book is comprised of three main sections. The first section is called Techniques, which is mostly just Billet Peeks. The second section is Revelations, and then the last section is the essays. Personally, I like the essays the best, but that's just, I'm going to get into why that is shortly. In terms of the ad copy, it's really misleading overall, and I'm just going to read the second sentence of it. This is the second sentence of the ad copy, says, using nothing beyond a piece of paper and a pencil. So that's really misleading because many items in the book require much more than just a pencil and a piece of paper. In fact, the first item in the book, you need to have a metal business card case. There's items that you need to have an envelope, items that you need to have a Peek wallet, so items that you need to have the magnetic film from Cypher or Paralabs. So there's a lot of items here that you need more than just a pencil and a piece of paper. So it's very misleading. So let's take a look at some of the items in the book, give you a good idea of what you can expect to get here. The first item is called the Perfected Full Billet Peek. Now this was released on Mentalism as a standalone item, where Louis Laval explains it. You can pick that up for $5. The idea is that you take out your metal business card case, you take out some business cards, you have somebody either write something or make a drawing, you put them back inside the case, and then you read their mind. What I thought was funny about that was that I independently came up with this like 2 years ago, and the reason was because there was an item that was marketed by Alakazam Magic, put out by Romanos about 5 years ago, and that was called The Business. Now, just watching the trailer, I could figure out how it was done, and it used a gimmicked case. Now, I didn't want to spend $50 on a gimmicked case, so I very quickly came up with a handling that was very basic and did the exact same thing with an ungimmicked case. I thought it was so simple that I called it myself the Super Simple Business Card Peek. I've shared it with lots of friends. Even last year, I had made a video and shared that even with a bunch of people that I talk to regularly because it was so simple, but yet very effective. So I thought other people would be able to just profit from that. Now, I was shocked when I saw that the first item in this book was the exact same technique. I was like just surprised, and I'm even more shocked that they're charging people for that because it's so basic and simple. But I shouldn't be surprised or shocked because nowadays they're just trying to make money on anything that they can. The next item in the book is called Colb Peek, and here Jose Prager is borrowing Fred Kolb's idea to do a peek, basically. So Fred Kolb, he was like a cruise ship magician, and he published like 50 years ago, 60 years ago, Business Card Telepathy, where you would hand out 5 business cards that had drawings on them. He would have the spectator concentrate on a drawing, they would mix them up, and he would read their mind. This was his way of getting his business card into the hands of a spectator. So basically Jose Prager has taken that idea, and his idea was, well, instead of giving them 5 business cards with drawings on them already, I can give them blank ones. They can make a drawing, concentrate on it, then make 4 more drawings and then mix them up and do the exact same thing. So the technique really belongs to Fred Colb. It's not Jose Prager's idea. So this goes into what I call a throwaway item, because really this is something you would share with your friends. Why would you publish this? Why would you try to charge people for this? It's not even really your idea when it boils down to it. If you're interested, you can find the original routine in Bob Nelson's book called Still More Miracles in Mentalism. That's where you can find it. In fact, that book is much better than this book if you are interested. The next piece was called Kolb Unlock, and I was like, why would you waste 2 pages to talk about how you can use the last idea to do a pin revelation? I mean, I was just like shocked by that, because you could have added 1 sentence at the end of the last item and just put, by the way, you can use this as a pin revelation and unlock someone's phone. Instead, he wasted 2 pages on that. In that same section, there's an item called blank reading, which you may be familiar with because Jose Prager put this out as a standalone item back in 2016. And that is another billet peek where you give your spectator a folded billet, you have them make a drawing, and they hand it to you behind your back, and then you take it and put it in an envelope, and then you've gotten your peek. Now, unfortunately, this is not Jose Prager's technique. It really isn't. So the idea of the Hull card has existed for years, and Sid Bergeson actually published the exact same technique that Jose Prager is trying to pass off as his own, I guess. The actual technique was published in Boscombe Jones's Magic magazine back in the 70s. The routine was called San Diego Special. So that's the actual real origin of the tech. It's the exact same technique. So it's not Jose Prager's, but there you go. In that same section, Jose Prager has another piece called Psychometry and Telepathy. Now, this was his streamlined handling of Larry Becker's Sneak Thief. Unfortunately, Jose Prager had to publish this because it doesn't do anything to improve Larry Becker's routine or the original routine, because, I mean, this goes all the way back to when Max Maven published Desire in his blue book of Mentalism, which if you have the Prism book, then you'll be able to see it there as well. There's been a lot of mentalists that have put out their own version of this. In fact, Colin MacLeod recently, he released his piece called Thief, which you can, aptly named, right, Thief, which you can get on Penguin Magic for I think it's $35 is what he's charging for it there. And sadly, Colin MacLeod's version also doesn't offer any real improvements. I mean, he's got a lot of complicated moves that are involved in there, a lot of handling of the cards, which is really what you don't want to do. You don't want to handle the billets a lot, and there's a lot of handling of the billets in Colin MacLeod's version as well. I mean, Max Maven's version is even better. I have a version that I would even recommend to you guys, which is super squeaky clean, but that's neither here nor there. There's a couple of other items here. I mean, there's an item which he calls Telempathy, which is basically just using a peek wallet to peek someone's information and then do the reveal. I don't know why he had to publish that. There's also some ideas that he put in this book regarding Acidus Novus. Unfortunately, these are all throwaway ideas. I mean, there's a piece he calls here Confidential, which is basically having your business card prepared in a way to facilitate Acidus Novus. Well, anyone who does Acidus Novus, at least like on a regular basis, would have their business cards prepared in that way or something similar to that. There's something he calls the black billet, which I'm like, why did you put this in the book? And the idea being that the business card or the billet one side of it's completely black to make it more difficult to see through it. I'm like, really? That's, again, another throwaway piece. And then there's a section that's called no peeking required. And all of the items there I felt were really weak overall. I'm just going to give you some examples. There's one that's called name and sign. And the idea is he has somebody think of a person in their star sign and he reveals them using the one ahead principle. Unfortunately, and this is really cringeworthy, he talks about using Peter Turner's anagram for doing the star sign reveal. And it's like cringeworthy because it's not Peter Turner's anagram. When are people going to get this through their head? The Ray's anagram for star sign divination belongs to either Bob Farmer or Ray Grismar, because those are the guys that came up with it, not Peter Turner. It's just cringeworthy how just the crediting is so poor. It's just terrible. And you're putting it in print. You're just going to confuse people. There's a piece here called Shapes, which is the old psychological force that we all know. If you've read Banachek, then you know that. And then the final piece there is called the Untouched Billet, which I wouldn't recommend to anyone because it is a way of having somebody think of a color, and then you go through this anagram to reveal their color. The problem is when you get to the end of the anagram, you still don't even know their color. I would recommend that you don't even go near that. Instead, just use my propless color divination principle that I gave to everybody last year. I emailed this out to everybody last year. It's so much better than this. So I'm like, really? Anyway, that's the first chapter. It gives you an idea what it is. The second chapter is the reveals. And all of these reveals I felt were overall just really poor. He goes over 16 reveals in 8 pages. And to give you an idea of how just silly some of these are, one of these reveals is like, for example, you tell a spectator, okay, just concentrate on what you're thinking of. I'm just going to pluck it out of your mind. That's the reveal. So these are all like throwaway items. I mean, they're just so basic and simple. Why would you put this in print? You know, maybe one out of all of these 16 or something that you're going to find useful. There's one there that he calls the black tunnel, which is that basically tells the spectator to imagine a black tunnel connecting your minds to do the reveal. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. It's just like, really? I'm like just shocked by that. So the final section of the book are the essays, and I thought that the essays were at least a little bit better, although again, a lot of the items in the essays are just the same age-old things over and over again. The first item is called Challenged, and it's the idea of what do you do if somebody challenges you and says, okay, well, what am I thinking? His solution to that is you basically take out a billet and have somebody think of something and then you do a revelation. So not that shocked by that. The one piece that I liked was called Affected. And the reason why I liked that was because it was a list of topics that you could use when you want to have your spectator think of something. So anytime you're going to do any of these types of impromptu billet reads and revelations, you have to have them think of something. And so instead of just telling the person, okay, just think of an object or think of a person, there's a number of topics he presents there of different things that you could have somebody think of that actually has some meaning. So I thought that was really the only essay here I really liked a lot. The other essays, I really didn't think they were that great. The last essay is called There Is No Billet, which anyone who does any billet work already realizes that that's the most important thing, is not to put any emphasis on the billet. So a lot of this stuff is common sense and stuff that you should already know. So summing up, I would not recommend this book to any of you guys. I would probably rate it 2 out of 5. And the only reason I would rate it as that is because I thought there was a couple of little ideas here or there that somebody might find useful. But I really didn't take away anything from the book that I really will use myself. I don't think it's worth $10. I think you should just skip it. As usual, if you have any questions about this or anything else I review, please just leave me a comment below. Thanks so much for tuning into my magic reviews, and I'll see you on the next one.